Every family, every business, and even government should live within a budget. And it doesn't matter if it's $100 or $100 million. I am here because fresh eyes from citizens' view, not government view. We can't lead in fear. We have to lead in faith.
Okay, welcome back to the Grindcast. So today we're joined by Nanette Billings, current mayor of Hurricane. She's studied education at SUU and has run a family business here for nearly 4 decades with her husband. Since taking office in 2022, she's focused on fiscal responsibility, cutting red tape, and protecting Hurricane's unique character. She highlights securing millions in funding, improving infrastructure, and keeping growth aligned with the city's plan as key accomplishments. As she seeks re-election, Nanette says she's committed to preparing Hurricane for the future while preserving the values that make it home. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. And if you guys haven't noticed, we're in a different location. We are on scene today because there is a story behind that. And so first off, maybe you could share a little bit about that story and why we are here instead of in studio. I'm sure it's a fun story. You've shared it many times already this last week, but if you want to share that story, that may have some.
So Peach Days is our annual celebration in Hurricane City. We love it. And in the Peach Days parade, I had called a friend, lived over in Vail, and said, would you come over and pull your horse and buggy for mayor and council, for me and the council? So we were throwing candy and having a great ride through the parade on this horse and buggy. And after the parade, I went to get the horse some water, and the horse ran into me and then knocked me over and then trampled me. And I have a broken leg and a lot of bruises and I actually had an MRI on Monday and have an appointment with the orthopedic surgeon on Friday. I'm praying I don't have to have surgery on my leg. They said the breaks will heal the one in my foot and the one in my leg. So yeah, here I am with a broken lecture, and they came to me.
So jumping in a car and driving over to the studio was a bit of a problem.
Right. So thanks for accommodating this leg right now.
No problem. We appreciate you inviting us over, and so we can still get this done. So, first off, tell us a little bit about you.
I was raised in Hurricane. I'm born here in St. George, I guess, but I'm raised in Hurricane until I was 10. And my dad had a transfer he worked with. It's CenturyLink now. Actually, not CenturyLink. It's Enbridge now.
Yes.
So he worked for them for 39 years, but he was a manager. He moved to Richfield for the last few years of my high school for like 8 years. And as soon as I had graduated, then they moved back to Hurricane. So I actually graduated at Sassafras High School.
Okay.
That's where I met my husband. Well, we are sweethearts. I was 15 when we started liking each other, I guess you could say. And I've loved him more and more every day since. That's amazing. But we ended up moving to Cedar, went to college there. And then after school, he had been actually working in the financial industry for 2 years while we were at school. And when I graduated, and I graduated as in education, thinking I would maybe teach if I needed to, if I ever had to go back and work as a working mom. I didn't know. You never know as you're a young person. And so I wanted to finish my education. It was important to me. I remember my dad saying to me when I got married, never regret. Like, if you're ready to have a family, have a family. If you're not ready to have a family, make the decision and don't have a family right now. He said, if you want to finish school, finish school. But if you're not wanting to finish school, don't regret you didn't finish school. So, and I really focused my life on not regretting things in my life. That's great. Moving forward and say, I'm going to try making decisions with my eyes open. And sometimes I haven't done that as well as other times. I've had to work on that, but I've tried really hard to make decisions that are going to be really impactful later. So anyway, and he said financial advising, so we moved here.
Awesome.
It's been good.
Yeah.
So what would you say your why is for running for mayor?
Oh man, I'm going to it's the people. Like, I'm here for citizens. I've met with thousands, and I feel like when you listen to what people need, and the reason we have government in the first place is for people. Yeah. It's important to realize that the things that impact you the very most are decisions that are made on a municipal level.
Awesome.
because they're your everyday business owners. What happens in your community, what happens in your next door neighbor, that's all like that's municipal government. So it's important to have it's not just city government, it's like what's happening with the people in your community and how we handle them.
You said the hurricane is kind of where your roots run deep. What early experiences here most shape your approach to being mayor?
Probably water, because my great grandparents helped build the canal. And I feel like that you cannot give up your water for a mess of pottage. You have to hold on to rights and you have to make sure that you're developing. So I've really focused on land use and water rights and the development process of, yes, we want to be able to have a place for our kids to build their homes and live here and other people that want to come here, but we want to maintain the rights we have and we also want to develop what we have. And I feel that's one of the main focuses I have is making sure that we are developing what rights we have because of forefathers that were very visionary before I ever came on the scene.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So for a while, you and your husband have been part of a family financial services business, is helping families manage their finances. How has that experience shaped your approach to budgeting, infrastructure investments, and then fiscal responsibility as mayor?
That's a great question. So every family, every business, and even government should live within a budget. And it doesn't matter if it's $100 or $100 million. I mean, honestly, it does not matter. I mean, and that's what we're looking at, the difference in our city's budget at $120 million, or if we're looking at a family budget for, $400,000 or whatever that is. When you recognize that or $40,000, I shouldn't just use huge numbers, but I'm just saying, and it doesn't matter if it's $400. You can look at it and say, what's the revenue coming in? What are the expenses? And what are we going to save? And then where should our budget be? And there's no difference. You have to live within your means, and government should do that. And so it's made it very simple to me to look at it and say, where should we be spending money? And because budgets are about priorities. It doesn't matter if it's family, business, or government. It's all about priorities. What you're going to budget means what you prioritize. And I've felt like I've spent a lot of my time with the budget on what I prioritize, which is then police funding. I mean, our funding for police, they were only at $57,000 for people that have been here 12 to 18 years. They were at $57,000 when I started as the mayor. They're at 93 now. That's an important thing to him. So my priorities have been, we're going to budget for this. Roads, we put a lot more money. I've actually gone to the state and got more funding for roads. I brought in $8 million just in funding for some of our roads that we've needed to have. So I feel like wherever you're focused on money, you put that money and figure out how to improve. And I feel like budgets are about priorities.
I think that makes sense because family, if they have a $40,000 budget, like they have no choice. They have to live with that. They can't just create more.
And I am very strong. When I say this is like everything within me. I will not raise taxes. You can live within the means that you have. And if you can't, a family can't go say, well, I'll just ask somebody to give me more money. That isn't the way it works. And so government shouldn't do that either. It should just be, well, sorry, we're going to raise your tax. No, live within the means that you have and figure out how to make it work, because there's families that they're on a very fixed income. We have our seniors, we have our veterans, we have single moms, we have, young families. They cannot just say, well, I'm going to put in another $90,000 or I'm going to put in another $90 a month or $9 a month. Sometimes $9 a month is 2 gallons of milk that they needed. And so it really does matter, whatever that number is.
And they just can't go figure out like, okay, here's our budget, but now the city is making decisions where we don't have a choice. We just have to do it.
I've been very strong on that. And I know that it's a controversy. I support our first responders. Absolutely.
That's for sure.
But I also feel like that you need to live within a budget as well. And they raised our taxes on fire district. I was adamantly opposed to that. I was on the board and it was 90% increase that they wanted to have. And I just said, no, we can live within our means. We can figure it out. We can change things that we need to do. And the very next year, I put Clark on that. And we ended up having a 52% increase this last October. October, wherever, when the commissioners chose to do. But that's the point that I'm saying. It's a no for me. We do not have to raise taxes. We can figure it out. And so I also feel like it's tough because you can always have government say they need more. Always.
So yeah, well, and it's usually an easy route.
Yeah.
Just raise taxes.
And
Solve
it's
the problem.
like I have a son that just bought a home, and his increase was $90 a year for his increase. You can say $90 isn't that much more because he was spending 180 and it was a 52% increase. So it was like $90 for him to add to his tax. And he said, Mom, $90 to me matters. And he said, I know that you can look at $90 on every single thing and go, well, everybody needs an extra $90 from every single citizen to make it work. And he says, this is hard. And so you have to look at citizens and what. Anyway, I just made sure that I'm looking at it and saying, how would I feel?
Yeah.
Oh, that's how I feel. I'm a citizen and I don't want to have to pay more than what's required. So it's tough.
I'm sure part of it is not like just the $90, but it's the fact that there's 30 other things that are increasing by $90 as well.
Mine was 580.
On it.
So I just have to look at it and go, 580 is a significant number.
Yeah.
And so someone is
Yeah.
somewhere.
You've emphasized limited government and cutting red tape. Can you share a specific ordinance or process you streamlined in your first term and what impact it had?
Sure. Here's one. Rock falls on. It had come to our attention that we had several of the homes, like 95% of our houses have already been built in the rockfall zone.
Can you explain what that is for those?
Yeah. So if you live in a rockfall zone, it means you're living close to the cliffs, which along the Hurricane Cliff, there's 95% of our property that's already been developed. Well, the state had already made regulations in 2012 that said this is the rockfall zone. Like if this property is in this zone, then they're in the rockfall zone. Well, it come to our attention because one development had come in and said, hey, we're trying to develop here. And it came to the city staff and they said, oh, well, and it had never been followed since 2012. They came to this developer and said, now you're going to need to go do this geotech report. And it was like $25,000 to tell them they were in rockfall zone, which the state had already done before. So we actually brought that to our planning commission. We had a work meeting. Back to the planning commission, back to our city council. And it was when you're the leader, you have to be influential. And I had many that felt like, well, we don't want to have a rock fall on them. I'm like, but we're not stopping rocks from falling on people. Like we're not putting up some kind of guard. And if we're going to do anything that would mitigate the actual rock falling on them, they know they're building next to a cliff. So maybe indemnification. And so we had lots of discussions. So being influential to the council, because they weren't all on board at first. And then they realized, oh, this is just more government red tape. It's not going to change anything, especially for affordable housing. You go, how can we make this affordable and have to spend another $25,000 on a geotech report? That doesn't make it any more affordable. So that's just one.
Awesome. So speaking of leadership, leadership often means setting the tone for more than just casting votes, right? How would you describe your leadership style and how do you bring people together when opinions in the community and council are divided?
Oh, I love that. So I've had to listen a lot. That's probably the most important part. And maybe a way that I've looked at it first, I'll say, is everybody at the table? That's been one of my leadership styles, is to make sure that we have everyone there. When I was first on the council, I remember a council meeting when we were there, and it was the words that came out of people's mouths. Well, let's pass this. The other people aren't here. We have to listen to their point of view. And that really affected me when I was on the council. So as a mayor, if someone's not there, I will say, let's table or continue this item so we make sure that they're here. We want everyone to have the voice. And we've held, so our civic center is one of our big projects that we've been working on this last year. We need to build a new fire station, we need to build a new city office, and we'd have 10 open public meetings. So then we'd send out 2 surveys. And during the entire process, we hired Zion State to do this fiscal analysis to determine how can we pay for it if we don't want to raise taxes. And then we met with the community and sent out surveys, and then we had other public meetings. And at the end of the day, we've listened to what the community said, we listened to what Zion State said, but we also stuck with, okay, this is our plan, this is what we want to do, and we're going to stick with our general plan, first of all, and we're going to listen to what the community wants. And it's split half and half. And so that's I feel like that's the most important thing, is making sure that you have the community that comes out, have the council that's going to listen. And part of that is open discussion. Every single council meeting, I have public forum, and I allow people to come speak on any issue, any item. And if they don't have an item on that agenda, they can come out and take 2 or 3 minutes and explain what it is that there's concerns, and we can talk about it and put it on another agenda if that's necessary. So it's really important to me to have people be able to have a voice. And if there's something that's a problem, we can address it. Like, it shouldn't be just, oh, we're never going to deal with that. So
Yeah, that's great. We met with some citizens and asked them some questions as well. Saying, okay, what questions do you guys have? What do you want to know? So I have kids that are in sports, and from what I've read, you kind of experienced that as well. And so there's several parents who have raised concerns about limited youth sports facilities here in Hurricane, from not enough soccer fields to baseball fields being converted into softball. Some kids are even joining St. George teams instead of playing here at home, but that may not be an option for some families due to the cost. What can be done to ensure Hurricane kids have the fields and resources they need to keep developing locally?
I have been passionate about youth. From our youth council that I started when I was a council member. And I have an awesome person that's running a youth council right now that I've been involved in. I've got a good Councilman Preetz, that's helping with that. I feel passionate about youth in leadership and in activity. And so when I started the Youth City Council, it was Save the Youth, SAVE, service, activities, visiting all the municipal sites and educate them on the Constitution. When I talk about youth sports, I'm going to say I've been very active in making sure that we are spending our money, especially park impact fees. And then I've gone out to many other people. Like, I've raised a lot of money for this kind of, you're talking about fields and gyms. So when I was first elected mayor, 3 years prior, in 2019, the council before me had to put on the ballot a GEO bond to bond for a $26 million recreation center. It didn't pass. It was 76% of the community said, we don't want to pay for that. They didn't say we didn't want one. They said, we don't want to pay for that with a bond. And so I went to business owners, 63 of them, and said, how can you help me? What do you think we could do as a private-public partnership to build something like this? And I ended up talking to all the good people that said, oh, and then I found a person that had a perfectly good building sitting on their property. And it took almost a year to get that from him. Because some people, when they hear no, that means no to them. No doesn't mean no to me. No means no to the information they've received. Like, we have to talk about this a little longer because maybe I didn't communicate that well enough or something. And I just said, you have kids grew up here and have had recreation opportunities. So how can you help me? Would this be an option to have you donate this building? We'll give you a tax write-off on it because you're donating it for youth recreation sports. And he finally came back after the 6th time of me reaching out to him. I just said, this is a good option. Can you not see this would be great for our community for you to give us this building? And he said, I'll give it. And he didn't even ask for the donation portion. He said, I'll give it if you use it for recreation. It doesn't get repurposed for something else, like a water building or a department for power to hold stop. And then he said, and then if you can't get it to work, he didn't have the plans. So we had to reverse engineer it. We had to go over to Armagosa, where he'd already built one, and have the engineers reverse engineer that we paid $10,000 for. And then he said, and if you can't get it to work, you have to bring it all back. So we had to go pick up all the pieces so we could see what was there, see what we needed to order. You really only had to order nuts and bolts. Dead serious. Everything in that building is the original, except for 3 things. I mean, there's really only, it's just like the whole thing was perfect. And we didn't know that at the time, but he said not to repurpose it, and that we'd build it within a year. That was his third. And he says, I don't want you to take it and have it be 50 years from now. I mean, just say, I want it to happen. And so that was an important thing. But since then we worked with some of our park impact fee. I went to Greater Zion and I got another $2 million. And both State Bank gave us $100,000 for the Litchfield gym. And some Doors and Windows, Roger and Jeanette McDonald gave us $100,000 for the Snoopy just to pay for flooring. So I've gone out and asked people and they've donated too. So it's taken a lot of time and energy to make these things happen. But you ask about soccer fields. So let me just tell you a little bit about our development community. So right in our pit area, they're building 2 new soccer fields. And then we have 4 more that will be coming close to the Dixie Springs and Eland Valley area. And then we have 16 pickleball courts going in right there. And then
Will the soccer fields have lights?
That's a good question.
This is a question that other coaches have, because they say, some of us, we all will show up in the field at the same time. But then if it's starting to get dark, we have to go try to find another field. And so there's one that's around that way.
Yeah.
I'm lost, but around that way that has lights, and everybody's trying to use that one because it has the lights.
So you know what? I'm glad you're bringing that to my attention, because I haven't had someone bring that up. And so these are the things that come from citizens when they reach out, and then we address them and make sure, okay, we're going to make sure we get some lights on these.
Yeah. Well, especially in the winter months, fall and winter, when it starts to get dark around 5, so
and that's like our pickleball courts that we're taking them out. And it's a little bit of controversy. We have people saying, we don't want the sport trees to be gone. Well, if you look around pickleball courts, they don't have trees around them anywhere in the country, because roots ruin pickleball courts. And we're putting in the coast tension concrete so it won't ruin that. But right now we have 6. 2 of them are facing east and west, so the sun's in ice. And the other 4 are north and south. All of them will be 4 and 4, north and south facing. And then we'll have lights. And anyway, so we're redoing those right in downtown too. Not something that will be started in very soon. We wanted to finish Peach Shades, but we just finished the engineering and we're ready to go out to bid. So very close more.
Yeah, I like that, and I appreciate hearing about the soccer fields. I'm sure my kids will too. My youngest is a soccer player, and that's been one of the challenges. Is some of the players that maybe will start to get better.
Yeah,
there's just not the things here for them, and so they'll start leaving, and then it leaves the other kids who either don't have the ability to travel because of finances, or maybe they're not on that level yet, and then they start thinking, well, maybe we should just quit, because those parents who, for those were the coaches, and then they kind of leave. But I think it's really important that, I can see the difference that it's done for my kids in sport. It's a show we still need those other kids to be able to have some resources.
Well, in high school, you're only having about 120 to 150 athletes that actually participate in high school sports. But there's 1,000 kids that are in our rep program or club programs. You got like a few hundred. So we want to have opportunities for more kids to have opportunity to be able to do that. I visited with the high school coach, and Ted Payne, the new coach for the girls soccer team, reached out to me yesterday. I was going to go to their game. I'm like, never bought a book, and like, I'm not going to take that. But they actually beat Pineview last night 2-0, which is awesome. That he's one that really met with me, and I said, we have these 2 new fields that are coming on between St. Paul and Eland Valley, and they should be done sometime before the end of this year. But I need to find out about lighting. That's a good question, because I hadn't even considered that. And not that I hadn't considered it. It's just sometimes unless somebody says, we need to push for it, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So these are really important. And I'm working with that high school coach, because that's how you build programs. That's why we are building the program for our indoor gyms. We've never had indoor gyms here. And now we have 6 of them because we're trying to help. Our high school programs was in basketball, volleyball, wrestling, even pickleball can be indoors. And they have been doing that. Dance, tumbling, there's hundreds that you do indoors that you just haven't. We have had no facilities at 0.
Yeah.
So
that's great. And I think especially here, based on the climate too, so it's not just like the sun falling down, but in July it's also very hot. So in December, I think lights make a huge difference, because then
especially like this,
when the
sun goes down there. December, when the sun goes down a little earlier, and there's still some kids that want to go out there and practice. Just can't. For those watching, there is a nonprofit here in town called Hurricane Kids First. Their mission is to help kids stay in Hurricane by providing the resources they need to play and grow right here at home. If you'd like to support their efforts, you can visit hurricanekidsfirst.com.
Correct. So as far as business ownership, right? Hey, what's your goals for helping small business thrive in Hurricane?
Well, I was first on the council. That was in 2020, January, when I got elected. COVID happened. And so I'm just going to start from there, because I've always been an advocate for any business. I don't care what business it is, because that reflects on a family. And so a family, if they're working in a factory or if they're starting their own business, it's all important. And it really taught me a lot to see what happened with COVID when they're saying the liquor store can be open, but your business can't. And so I personally went to small businesses and visited with them and said, what do you feel comfortable with? The state law was not law. It was state mandates. It was state requirements. It was state guidelines. There wasn't people that were coming in with as mask police. There weren't people that they had set up to say, okay, well, if you don't do, because municipalities were given the opportunity to still manage businesses. And so when the state legislature with state law, like about how your state constitution is written, that they allow the municipalities certain rights. And Washington County, Hurricane City, we decided we're going to let businesses choose how they run their business. And we allowed them to stay open. And so as I visited with business owners, I said, I will support your business. You do what you need to do to keep you, your employees. And if you don't feel safe, then you do something different. And that's okay. But there's no business that's more important than another business. They're all to support family, to be able to let families thrive. And so, and as a mayor, I have gone to all of our chamber. I've gone to grand openings and ribbon cuttings, and because I want to have them know that we want their business. With the chamber, I felt like it's really important to go to ribbon cuttings and grand openings and groundbreakings and support them so they know those are the things that a mayor's showing up shows support from your community. And we haven't had that in the past. We need to have people feel like their business thrives because we're willing to work together. I've had other business owners come in and say, hey, this isn't working. I've tried to do this. We had a cottage license recently where the cottage license is through the state, but our city wasn't allowing the business to happen. And it was because our regulation was they were trying to run a commercial kitchen in a residential area. And so we just barely kind of figured out how we could make this work when we ended up doing a development agreement so that they could make their chips and salsa and Pops, against Pops Chips and Salsa. That's the company.
Okay, I would get that.
Yeah, and so it was a really interesting, but they came, we visited, and you find solutions. How can we help every business to thrive? But that's happened throughout the time I've been in there. It's not why you can't make it work, is how you can make it work. And I think it's really important for government to listen and to find solutions.
Yeah. And I love that. I personally, opened my business 3 months before COVID. And so I was, I think a lot of us were just very confused and we were scared, because we didn't know what the mandates actually meant. Yeah. So there was a lot of fear of like, if I run my business, then I don't know if I'm going to get fined if somebody comes in, and we still had to provide food for our families. Yeah. And so, that's great that you went out and tried to help educate and help those businesses know they could stay open and it was their choice and what they were comfortable with. So that is really great.
COVID was tough. And the very first council meeting that we had, they actually went into a closed session. And usually you can't talk about closed session, but this wasn't a reason to have a closed session. And it was basically our police was following a family because the family, they have COVID and everyone was scared. Fear was driving all of it. And I remember saying, listen, we don't live in Russia or China. And if I hear that our police are following families, like we're firing people. Yeah. That isn't the way this works. Yeah. And we can't lead in fear. We have to lead in faith. We have to move forward and say, we're going to believe that we're going to all be able to live, not all die. And so we're not going to make people not be able to go to the gas station or the grocery store, or leave their houses. Like, that's not where we're going with this. And I never felt comfortable with that. And so those were really important issues to make sure that people felt like that they were fine and that we weren't going to have everyone. So yeah, I think it's really important to realize what we have to do. And as a leader, I was the only council member. I mean, Clark was our city manager. Every council member, our mayor, was all wearing masks and felt like that was what they had to do, which is fine. I felt like I was that other minority, maybe, that said, no, I'm not comfortable with this and I'm not going to. First of all, I had a gun in my purse. And I said, if I wear a mask, I can give a felony. That's actually a thing, to actually get a felony for wearing a mask with a gun. Right. They're not going to get a felony for not wearing a mask. And so I said, if I'm having a hard time with all these rules and laws, and some of them didn't even make sense. And they started with goggles and all these things I've said, and yeah, the floor with all the I was at 6 feet and you can only go in one door. And I'm like, you come for another door, it's not going to make any cigarette. I ended up cutting off the plastic around the drinking fountains at the city because I went, who put garbage bags around the drinking fountains? Do people not need water anymore since it's COVID? I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. And so there was just things that were just not, they were silly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you have to move in faith rather than fear. You still need water, even if it's COVID. And so you still need to be able to go to the grocery store and whatever we're doing. So I feel like it's really important to stand up, lead out, and be that person. So
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. One of the things that, so I actually moved my business from St. George to Hurricane, and I did have some challenges. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on kind of how, because I feel like the way that Hurricane city offices kind of run new businesses coming in is a little bit outdated. So for example,
give me the exact.
yeah. So for example, if you were to go to St. George, they give you like a list that they print out, and it's like it has all of the contacts, all of the steps, checklists of what you do when you're open, starting a business. When I went into Hurricane, it was like writing on a sticky note. Here's who you contact. And so it made the process a lot more kind of challenging because I had to do a lot of the legwork, and not that that's an issue.
Yeah, just look on the website and see what you need to do. I'm here.
And yeah, so but then the other thing that I saw was, I had to move all of my equipment and all the things. And so as a person feeding a family, when my business was shut down, that was money that I wasn't able to like have for my family. And so there was challenge of like getting that timing to work out perfectly. And what happened was you go through all the steps, you pay all the fees to the fire, to the all the fees, and it came out to about $1,200. And then they send it to approval, whether or not your business can actually run in Hurricane. And so I was like, isn't that a little bit backwards? Like, shouldn't that be the first step of like, do we want your business here and then pay all the fees? Because it's like, are the fees going to be refunded? And then there was an entire week where they were processing that decision that I had to be completely shut down. And so I just think like as a business coming into a city, like that's not ideal, right? And so I'm just wondering, like, has anybody thought of like better ways to maybe get that a little more efficient and will work?
You know what? I haven't ever had someone tell me this. So that's something that we can actually bring up. I like the thought of saying, come in, bring your proposal, then it can go through, because the process, what happens is it goes through joint staff first. So it says anyone that's fire or police or streets, or they have an opportunity to say, I have a concern with that. Will you make sure you check into that? That's why there's a process for that. So it comes to joint staff and then it goes back through. And so, but that might be the thing that needs to happen first.
Right.
And then people kind of just pay their fee, right, and do all of the. I can see your point with that, but I do really change and have checklists.
Yeah.
Oh, that is perhaps changed because we actually had that with our building department before I was there. They didn't even have a checklist to how you can like submit your building files, and now we have a checklist. And I went to him and said, why can't, if a normal person wants to build a house, why is this so hard? They don't even know what they need to do. We need to have a checklist. I was the one that said, we need a checklist. And so those are really good points.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they weren't doing it before, but I'd never been a part of that process until I became the mayor. And I thought, we should have a checklist for that. If somebody normal wants to come in like me, if I want to build a house, I'm just a normal person, I wouldn't know the first place to go. We should have a checklist. And that's the same thing like we've gone electronic on all of our submittals and that is online. That took a little bit of time and a little bit of pulling teeth to figure out, okay, we're going to just actually for subdivisions, this is going online next week. Okay. And we just hired someone as an assistant public works that can deal with computers a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So we have this process, and that's the last thing that you needed to say, okay, now we're all online on all of our building department because it's important to have submittals. They were having to print 13 plans for JEC. Do you know what it costs to print 13 plans? It's like $10,000 every single time they have to do something. I said, we should fix that. People should not have to print a thing. Like we're in an age where you can get on an iPad and figure it out. Right. So that's taken some of the leadership from me saying, no, we're doing this. We're like going this direction. This is important that people shouldn't have to print, but it does take time. And we've had to hire a company and have them build software and have them work through our city and how to do that. But Yes. No, those are really good points that I will remember. But that's a good thought. And I can look into that. And those are good changes. But listening to citizens is how I've changed everything that I've done. So like I've come up with all the ideas and how people come to me and say, this is something I feel like is really important. And I've gone back and sometimes it's been a no. We have this regulation through the state that won't work. Or I've had to go in and we had to change state law on a couple of things. I had 2 business owners that were linemen that came to me. One ended up being my son 4 months after the first person. But the first lineman that came to me said, hey, I'm not even able to get a license with the state to actually work through this because Doppel's shutting it down. So I had to go meet with legislators and then they had to change state law so we could give them business lessons in our city. Wow. And that was 2 times of going up to the legislator, visiting with them so we could solve it so they could have a business here. I want to help businesses. I always try. And that's important. You have to have somebody willing to put in the time, willing to listen, willing to find the resources, willing to talk to the right people in the legislature and make those things happen. And that actually happened in this state law. And it became, that was last August when that first started. And then my son moved here in November from Colorado. And so it affected his business too. But I met with him in October and worked through some things. And then I met with him again in January and worked through some other things. And went through this legislative session, was approved in March. And that was pretty much unanimous through the House and the Senate. And then became law on May 7th. But those are the things that your municipal leaders can say to your state leaders. Hey, this is affecting families running businesses in our community.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to have them come to you.
I appreciate that because it seems more like you're being proactive rather than reactive, right? You're being proactive, trying to make something.
Kind of both, because I feel like I don't know a problem until someone comes to me. Sure. But I also, proactive means I have to find out what the resources are to how do you make it work rather than why it won't work. Right. Oh, I'm sorry, then the state, it's on the state. Yes, it was on the state, but I couldn't give a license unless the state changed their law. And what's so silly about it, and this is when I read through the state law, I went, well, actually, linemen are the only ones that are actually licensed, or not licensed. They're the only ones that are qualified to do this work because it was hot work for volts over 600. And that was the issue, is they were the ones that they didn't even have listed. They had electricians that can only go up to. So it was silly. You're like, wait a minute, but high voltage work, they put an electrician as an exception in there, but they left out the lineman. That's what they do. So it was kind of, when we got up there, the state's going, oh yeah, I can see what you're saying. It's just been written wrong for the last 12 years in code. So it does take a little bit of proactivity to realize when you read the law, what you're trying to accomplish, and then nail it.
Well, I can see some people just like saying, well, this is the way law is, go up and figure it out rather than taking some ownership of it and to say, well, okay, I want to help, I want to serve. Yeah. So I appreciate that. Growth is a big issue in Hurricane. You mentioned that You've mentioned that you opposed high-density zoning changes. How do you see the right balance between allowing new development and then protecting the community's character?
So our master plan allows for some high density. So I'm not going to say high density everywhere, because there's places that we have high density, like we have apartment buildings or more density in one area for townhomes or duplexes or single family homes. There's some of the areas that you might have a 1/4 acre lot or a 1/3 acre or a 1/2 acre or an acre. And those areas have been designed by planners that are really smarter than me. And I'm not going to try to come in and say, I know how to build a city. No, I look at what those professionals have done and how they present and how other cities have been able to organize their cities to make them effective. And so I don't think I'm smarter than one of those planners. And so when I look at it, if you follow that plan, that's the problem. Is before I was on council and the first 2 years I was on council, every zone change, didn't matter what it was. If it was going from a 1 acre lot to RM3, which is the highest density that we have in our city to build 15 units per acre, everything was approved. Didn't matter what it was. Everything was just like, yes, yes, yes. And we have 22 to 30 items on every council agenda. And they just say yes. So the reason we're dealing with some of the problems that we're dealing with is because of a previous council. I can't blame everyone, but I have to look at it and go, now we're trying to solve problems for infrastructure. Like, we didn't have the infrastructure. So what have I been doing? I've been we're building a 2 million gallon tank. We're drilling 3 wells right now. We have line extensions going in other areas. We've been doing transmission lines on 600 North going to be doing along 2800 SR7 to expand our lines and substations because we don't have the infrastructure here. And the roads, that's another really huge one that we've been working on, because if you don't have the infrastructure and your city, usually normal cities will grow like this. Well, our city has gone like this. And so it's very difficult, and you have to have roads to connect them. You've got to have power, fuel, and water in every road. And so to get the infrastructure to those places. And so we've been really, you can't just say, well, why aren't you allowing housing? Well, there's not infrastructure there. And the people around them that, like if you looked in every neighborhood, there's certain things that you're going to say, well, is it fair to have a Maverick next to that farm or next to that home? And so those are I feel like I'm following that master plan. And that's what I feel like I've done is we've had many developers. In fact, I had one very good friend that's a developer that's come to me and said, why have you voted against my zone change? He wanted to put Piracy Apartments instead of commercial. And it's a commercial zoned property. And why have you voted against it every time? And as the mayor, I've had 4 opportunities to vote on whether or not it went from residential, because it was commercial, to residential. And all 4 times, we only had 4 council members at the meeting, and I was a split tie vote. And all 4 times I voted no, because we need to keep commercial. I can't just come put a Maverick next to me right here and make it fine. The Maverick needs to be in commercial zone. Yeah. And so I said to him, stop bringing in something where you're changing it from commercial. Like, make it commercial. You have the property, you own it, make it commercial. And so he kind of shrugged and went, okay, well, we're just trying to afford places for people to live too. And I said, but there's plenty of that. Like, we have zones for that. So build there, buy that property, make that there. And I felt like it's fair. Yeah, they're everyone that knows about their property is.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense, and also makes sense now after you mentioned about some of those zone changes in the past have just been approved. You can see why there's a couple of areas where it's a little spotty.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Nobody asked any questions. It is just as yes.
He should have did it earlier.
Oh, right.
Just a yeah.
Well, that's actually true. Like you said, well, and I said, don't wait and make sure that all 5 council members are going to be here if that's what you're wanting, because I'm a no on commercial to residential. I'm a yes on keeping commercial. So
well, and also like that commercial land you guys received sales tax from.
Yeah.
And so that's also
that revenue really generating helped your city grow. You can't get rid of that. Yes, every place has property taxes, but your commercial pays 100%. Residential for single family, they're going to pay that 45%. You're going to get a little bit less. That's not my reasoning. My reasoning really comes down to businesses. You don't want everyone to have to go to a different place to work. We want people to be able to work where they live. And it's important to have neighborhood commercial that they can just run down and get their dog groomed or go do their taxes or go grab gas close or whatever. All of those things in your neighborhoods are important. Yeah. And we don't want to have people have to drive across State Street for every item. Yeah. Because State Street's a nightmare. We have a lot of traffic on State Street, so it needs to be in so they can get to the places they need to without having to just always go on the corridor. Yeah.
Love it. Water is a top concern among many. What projects or policies are you prioritizing to ensure supply for the future?
Okay, so supply is a very good question. First of all, God's the only creator of H2O, so that's the supply part. So I'm just gonna step back a minute, because the only thing a municipality has power over is access to the water, delivering the water, and retaining the water. And we have rights. And so our city's been developing our rights. So we have 3 wells that are being drilled. In fact, Dixie Springs well went on today. It's online today. So we should be filling up our tank today. It's a 2 million gallon tank we built. It's right there. We're building another 2 billion gallon tank, and we're drilling a well south by Sky Ranch. And then we're drilling another one by Three Falls, and that won't be totally for irrigation. But all of this is water rights we have that have not been developed yet. We have rights and more rights, but I'm saying you have rights and we want to be able to develop them so that we can have the access to the water. Because just because you have the rights, a municipality doesn't actually have to exercise the rights to keep the rights. If you own a water right, you have to exercise it and be using it, or when they go in and adjudicate it, they can take it away, the state. And so it's important to know that municipalities do not have to do that. They can hold the right and then they can say, now we're ready to develop it because we need it now. And we have more rights that we haven't developed. For right now, we're in the process of developing our rights because we need more to be able to supply for our community. And so part of it is, when I say access to it, is drilling your wells and also cleaning out our spring. Every single time we cleaned out our spring at Chokerville Falls, we have drilled into the sides to clear up the spring, clean out moss, all the things that you do in springs. And every time we have gotten more water. And I look at it as God's just saying, hey, I'll help you with that. You need more now. Let me make sure that we can give you that. And so that's what I do it. But reality, we had people come in, do their work, and we've just been very, very blessed. So retention is a big one. Like, we're building the Chokerville reservoir, and that's the Washington County Water Conservancy, but we're part of their pooling agreement. And I'm on the Ash Creek. I'm actually the chairman of the Ash Creek board for our Stewart district. So 3 years ago, we met together and said, we really need to change how we're using water. So we're converting perfectly good spring water that's been used on the outside watery in Laburican and Chokerville, and we're going to convert that to houses because Chokerville Bypass Road just got built. And at the time we knew it was going to be built, and we said, how can we get water to those places without using perfectly good spring water on our outside? And how can we convert so their outside watering is by reuse? And so we built Confluence Park, and it will be done in December down in the bottom of the river, Confluence Park. And it's a sewer treatment plant, and it's being converted to type 1. So you can go, okay, from Virgin, Laburican, Chokerville, all that sewage will be cleared to type 1 and will be for outside watering. And they will also go into Chokerville Reservoir after it's been cleaned because they'll have saline ponds. They're going to do a few things that are going to be on the pipeline to go there. And that's going to be another reservoir. So when you retain water, then you have water for your summer months because it's coming all the time, 24/7. If you can get the water so you can retain it for the times that you need it during the spring, summer, fall is when you need the retention. So we're working with the district also for Warner Valley. And that's a very important reservoir. And the reason, it's just been through permitting that's caused the holdup. It's not because of any other thing that our government permitting on us. But we're all working through that. But that's going to happen. We're going to need to have a place to hold more water. If we're filling that up with the Virgin River, because Virgin River is our one source through our city, to our area.
Yep.
But we're going to fill that up, and that's more retention for the spring, summer, and fall that will allow us to have the water. And then delivery. The Washington County Water Conservancy in our city, we have trunk lines so we can push water. Every one of our wells, we can push water from one to the other. So if something goes down, we can still feed water somewhere. We don't want people out of water. We don't want fire flows. We don't want it to look like Malibu when they had fires and not be able to take care of. So these are really important. And we have actually had a few of those that we didn't have. And while I've been there, I've met with our water department and we've solved some of those problems. So I'm just saying, these are really important issues to me. I want to make sure we don't have, if I hear something like, how does that affect us? Like, what could happen to us if we had this happen here?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to look at those things and be visionary and recognize you're not above fixing something. Like when people say, oh, we're all good. Everything's good? Asking the question makes so staff has to look at it and say, yeah, we needed to fix that.
Yeah, I like that. We spoke a moment ago about traffic on SR9, and that's, of course, a bit of a growing concern. I mean, I come from Salt Lake, so it doesn't seem like it's that bad to me, but I know it's a growing concern for some of the residents here. What solutions do you see for improving transportation and keep people moving smoothly throughout the city?
So we have between 42,000 and 48,000 cars a day on SR9. That's a lot, but most of that traffic is going through. It's not residents that live here. But most residents have to go to SR9 to get somewhere else. So we are working on some of the roads that are going to bypass, I'm going to say flow around. So 600 North is one road. 3,000 South is another one to get on SR7. We're working on 2300. We're working on, when I say this, I'm saying things that can go over to Dixie Springs. So you can have And it's going to take a lot of money because you're going over a bluff and cliff. And I mean, this is going to take some serious funding to do some of these things, but these are important connections. And so those are some of the things that.
Are you talking about one in Dixie Springs where there's like, it looks like they had blasted it out and kind of started, but then it stopped there?
Yeah. And come up over the hill, come to Hurricane. So your Hurricane proper can be connected with Dixie Springs. Okay. But I'm just saying that you don't always have to go to SR9 to go somewhere and to get somewhere else. It's important to have connections. So we are working on some of that. We've been working with UDOT, and we had a committee, citizens committee, along with some of our council members. And basically on SR9, what are some of the options? Do we widen SR9, take out some of our historical? No one's wanted to do that. No, we don't want to take out these businesses, and the cost of Sunken Road are so intense. But we said a couple of roads, even if we are improving on 100 North, 200 North, the improvements will make. So sometimes people will go on a different road because not that we want them to bypass every single business, but residents can. And that's who needs to be off those roads, who's residents. And anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. In July, you acknowledged involvement in removing an opponent's campaign signs. What did you learn from that? And what's the fair policy going forward?
So there's two things I've learned. One, that I have staff. And I also know that they had the opportunity. Like, we have had this discussion a lot. So the person that put up the signs broke two laws. The first is, your First Amendment is you can hold a sign. You can put it on your vehicle because that's your personal property, or your home, that's your personal property. But you do not have the right to randomly put stuff around your city, just a statement. That's number one. So he broke that first law of First Amendment. That's not your First Amendment. And he kept saying, my First Amendment. No, that's not it. You can hold it. You can put it on your personal property. Second thing is, it wasn't a political sign either. And that's the only other thing you could consider as a political. He didn't have his name on it, and it wasn't a ballot initiative. So second law that's broken is, with the state law, is that it wasn't a political sign because it wasn't his name and didn't have a ballot initiative.
So yeah, he has to disclose who. I mean,
you have to say who's doing it. You have to, and first of all, you have to say, I paid for it and I agree with it. You can't just go put somebody else's name on something and say they said that they agree with this if they didn't agree with it. That's part of being political. You have to say the name and you paid for it. So he's used something to twist and make it look like I'm a bad person. So I visited with my staff 3 times about this. And I said, well, if I bring it into the city office, first of all, either the group or the citizen or the candidate has to disclose who they are. We didn't know who it was. We didn't know if it was a citizen or a candidate or a group. We didn't know where it came from. I said, if we bring them here, they'll either come pick them up and ask for them back, and then we can explain what the rule is, or they're going to leave them here. Either way, they're not legal signs, so you can't just leave them there. And can I say backfire? Because people felt like when people don't know a law and they twist something to make it their narratives, that's where the whole thing and people just didn't know. Oh, well, it's not their First Amendment right? No, it's not. But they look at it like, that's my First Amendment right to say whatever I want. No, it's not. That's not true. And it's the same kind of being a candidate. So, but yes, I do have staff. And did the staff do the job? No, and I did not force them to do it because I didn't want to be heavy-handed and have the staff. And so we now the election will be over soon, and we are going to update our policy so that we don't have any of these issues, and it will give the staff all of the ability to take them down. You have to have ordinances for that too. Could our staff have done it? Absolutely. But they didn't, and I wasn't going to make them do something to make so that they will put in a bad light either. So
okay, that makes sense. What do you see as the biggest difference between you and your opponent, Clark?
Oh my goodness. So when I was first running for mayor, and I made this very clear to people I visited with, I said, there's only 3 things that are probably different with the person I was running for before. He tapped Squatch a lot, said, hey, you know what? I'm really busy. Do we have to have this meeting? And I said, as a mayor, you're going to have a lot more meetings in city council. And I knew it was going to be time intensive because I put in between 40 and 80 hours a week since I've been mayor. I have put in a lot of time. Yesterday, I put 7 hours. I'd have a broken light. I mean, just the things and then I answered phone calls, emails, and texts besides that. 3, just on the wind was blowing yesterday, and we had development that didn't have water on the development. So I'm calling our inspectors saying, can you come out? We look at this. And that's why people expect their elected officials to answer the phone call, answer an email. And they can call the city office all they want. And I'm not going to say our staff doesn't respond. I'm just going to say, but they respond to the mayor. When this mayor asks them to do something, they do it because they go, oh, this is important to the citizens. And so I feel like time was real important. That you're going to put in the time. You're going to be here to do the work. And one of the comments that Clark has made is, I won't do what you do. He told me that. I'm not going to do what you do. And he also said, I'm going to delegate more. And delegation is fine. I delegate all the time for all the things. But you still have to show up. And you still have to know what's going on. You still have to show up to meetings and know what it is that's happening. You still have to be present and be part of it. And so I'm just going to say, I am here because fresh eyes from citizens' view, not government view. Like, he might know more because he's been in the government for 39 years, but that doesn't mean he knows everything that's happened the last 5 years. And it doesn't mean that he's going to know everything that's happening today. And you can let staff run everything, or you can let the elected officials run everything, which is the way government's supposed to be run. You have staff to do all the work that the elected officials legislate. But elected officials need to be present. They need to show up with fresh eyes. They need to be able to say, no, we're not doing that, or that's a great idea. That's what elected officials are. The second one, so I was telling you about like running. The next one was, besides time, was city versus citizens. And I said, the question was always, well, how does this affect the city? I never heard that other candidates say, has this affect citizens? And I believe that we have to have both. It's always, we have government over here because of citizens, because of people. And so how does this affect the people? Not just how does this affect the city, because we have people here that are regional, we even have rule, right? And then the last one was really just zone changes. And we disagreed with the previous candidate on, he would just like high density zone changes. But Clark and I are on that same page. We both agreed to only have the zone changes according to the master plan. So that isn't one of them. So
if you win this election, what are 3 top priorities that you'll focus on?
Oh, man. Well, number one, just people. Like, I feel like we have to recognize people that are going to be building a house, building a business, building their lives here. I mean, all of those encompass everything, because if you're focused on people like building a home to live here, you want to make it so they're comfortable in their neighborhoods. And yes, all of those things in government, sometimes they get in the way. So people look at affordable housing as if it's something that the government can do everything. You can have regulations so that they don't cost as much to have them. But you also have to be able to pay for your infrastructure to get there. And so we've been working. That's one of the things that I personally done is I've gone out to outsource funding. I just filled out another grant with the state of Utah, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, because I've asked for $400,000 to help us with our $3.9 million line extension on 600 North to 3000 South. And I just said, will you help us? They have a few $1,000,000. I said, would you give us a few $100,000 to help us with this? And so I feel like we have to build the infrastructure so that we can help with affordability. Because if somebody had to go and build a line, they might own the property, but if they cannot get power to them, it's going to cost them a lot of money. And if we have power in all the areas, then they can build a home for less. And so second is businesses, and we have to keep commercial. And I actually, at the meetings, our council, we have 2 things that we've been working on with economic development. We have a new corridor for manufacturing, for industrial. We want that whole section to help bring in jobs. Good. We want more people to be able to stay and thrive by living here. And then commercial along our corridors. And that's one of the things that we've really been focused on is our corridors. And so as a mayor, I've been meeting with hundreds. When I say this, I'm not joking when I say hundreds of businesses over this last 3.5 years. And yesterday, Monday, I met with another developer that came in. He bought from 3,400 to 3,700 on State Street, and he's building entertainment, home improvement, and grocery. And he's put in an entire 20 other like shopping mall type centers. And that's what he does. And across from that's the Travel America that I've been working with the tribe on us. And we just got a development agreement with them because they want to come in, that your tribe, you want to be able to make sure you still have tax base that comes in from those things. So a lot of development. I've visited with Texas Roadhouse and Panda Express and all the people. I mean, people want restaurants, but people also, they think government provides that. Government doesn't provide that. People provide that. People start their own businesses, run their own businesses. Government, we just kind of say, yeah, you're allowed, but can I reach out? I reach out to Sam's Club. I'm working with other people saying, we need you in our community. You'll help each of our people be able to come, use your resources and help us. It brings in jobs, it brings in tax base, it brings in the goods and services we need. And then the third thing that I was telling you, so the first is people and businesses, and the other one is just all the things that make our community amazing is you go 365 degrees in our view and you have recreation and beautiful scene and keeping open space, having places for kids to play sports, having places, seniors to play pickleball, having our bike parks and our Sand Mountain. I mean, the access road that I worked on with the legislature that they funded into state parks, and I filled out a $2 million grant to fill out the on and off ramps. They have on and off ramps that go to the state park that go to nowhere. Now we'll be able to go to Sand Mountain and we can actually trailer ATVs and people can use and access that. Those are important to me. I want people to be able to come here and use our area and enjoy the things that we love here. But I want to be able to use that. My husband started the Tri-State ATV Club back in 2000. The mayor had come to him and said, would you start this? We have BLM that has put road close signs on all these roads. So my husband formed about 300 people, and every Monday night, right here in our kitchen table in this house, we had people come every single week and they brought in old maps and they said, oh, this is a road that's the RS-247 sent them away from the Forest Service. This is actually, and they had to go and they paid Bush and Gudgel. We didn't have cell phones with GPSs. They paid Bush and Gudgel to go out and map it. And then they had to pull out the road close signs. So we had to prove it. But I look at this and I say, I remember telling my husband, why are we doing this right now? Well, like we're in our 30s and we are busy with side kids and all the things from sports to school to business. We're starting to all the things we're doing to run a business. And he said, if we don't do that today, it won't be available when we're ready to ride our four-wheelers when we're old. And now I'm like, we ride our four-wheelers and their roads are still open. But the counties, like King County, didn't do that. And so their roads are still closed. Because of that, at that time in 2000, those roads got closed on Cannon Mountain and other surrounding areas, but it kept 2,000 miles of roads open. So my feeling is I'm doing everything I can to preserve open space, to make sure that we preserve and keep, because you don't get it back. And it gets used.
Makes sense.
But you have to remember, most of our city is private property. So if you're looking at it, it's probably getting developed here.
Yeah.
Unless it's on the BLM outskirts, which is around our city. So preservation of around where you do have control to be influential. When I talk to Celeste Malloy or Mike Lee or John Curtis, when I'm talking to our legislators about what I need, I'm saying, help me with this, because those are the most important things to keep open space so we can all enjoy the beauty of living here.
That's why most of us have moved here.
Yes, I should love it. I mean, I grew up where Sound Hollow is. My family would go there and would Easter there. Roll Easter eggs, hunt and Easter eggs down the hill, found Indian marbles. I mean, that's where we spend our Easter on a Saturday for Easter. But that's like developed now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that was BLM, which was converted into now a state park. So I'm just saying those things, and it's a beautiful state park. I'm grateful for that recreation area. It's preserved forever. It will never go away, and I'm super grateful. So those are the things we need to make sure we're preserving. Is that what we're
best? Okay, one last question, unless you have one. Okay. So the one last question, if somebody is watching this and they're kind of undecided, give them a 1-minute pitch on why you're the best for the job.
I am not government. I'm a citizen. I'm fresh eyes. I ask questions. I make people be accountable. I'm going to make sure that people show up and do their job. And it's not in a mean way. I have a really good relationship with my city manager and all the employees. I listen to people and I want to make sure that we have the best thing, because we all should be focused on the same goal. I don't have any agenda. I have nothing to gain. I've spent more money being the mayor than if I would have just gone and been a grandma, because I spend money on buying my own lunches and taking people and visiting with people and going places. I spend a ton of money going back to Washington, D.C. on my own dime to take care of all the needs that our cities needed, from prevention to securing funding for NRCS for our irrigation expansion that was $40 million. I mean, all the things. It's taken a ton of my tiny resources. I don't have an agenda. I'm here for Hurricane citizens because I want to be able to have my children, grandchildren. I have 5 kids, 7 grandkids. 3 of my kids live here. They bought homes. I have 6 of my grandkids that live in town. I want them to be able to thrive too. I want them to enjoy the same things that I grew up with 1,700 people. Now we have 26,000 people. It's going to grow. And that's just because land is available and people have a personal property right. It's called the Constitution that gives them the right to develop the property. It's going to develop, but how we develop, what we do, it matters. And having people that are visionary, they're going to work hard, listen to the other citizens, and not do something for their own gain. Like, I have nothing to gain. I'm not a developer. I'm not doing something to gain from a developer. I have nothing to gain. I'm not giving any money. I'm not giving kickbacks. There's nothing. I want to see awesomeness here. So,
Love it.
and keep our small town charm. And that's what I'm going to say. That small town charm is loving your neighbor, helping other people. Like, I can't believe how many people I could call on a moment's notice and they would say, I'll help you. And the same thing as if somebody called me. They know I'd help them.
And legacy events, I think, are really important too.
They are, and we have so many throughout the year. Our legacy events in our city are astounding. Like, most cities don't have what we have, but our city is huge. Like, we actually have a lot of departments. Most cities don't have a police department and a water department and a power department and a golf course. They don't have recreation. A lot of them don't have their streets. They don't have engineering. There's a lot of cities that don't have their own departments. They farm things out to other entities. We have a lot here. So it's not one, it's 551. There's a lot of issues on every level. But
I bet. Well, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you. And thanks so much for tuning into this special episode of the Grindcast. To see the other interviews, head to southernutahvotes.com. Special thanks to all our sponsors for their help in making this happen. And if you want to learn more about the Grindcast, please be sure to like and subscribe. We interview entrepreneurs about how they got their start and their step-by-step path to success.